The demo today is going to be about the 4 different types of paintbrushes that you're going to be using throughout the semester in this class. First thing you need is a piece of paper. It doesn't matter what size. You also need a water glass, a palette. The watercolor palettes and the water glass should be on the blue cabinet. If they're not, let me know. You're also going to need 4 different types of brushes. They are what are written right here. Round, flat, fan, and bright. These are what they look like. The first one's a round. Looks like this. Do you see how it's rounded on top? That's why it's called a round. The next one you're going to need is a flat. Now our flats are really small, but you'll be able to tell what they are because it's completely straight on top. The next one is the fan brush. Easy to find, looks like a fan. The next one you're going to need is the bright. The bright is a little harder to see because ours are so small in the can. This is what it looks like. It's very close to the flat, but look at the difference side by side. The flat is completely straight all the way around. The bright curves in at the top. Okay? Make sure that you look at each brush. Mine are easier to see. The ones that are in the can are not so easy to see. If you have a question, ask so I can tell you if it's a bright or not. The reason that you're learning about 4 different brushes is because what I've noticed that students tend to do is use one brush for every single thing. These have specific purposes, so take advantage of them. The first one you're going to use is a round. All right? Load the brush with water. Pick a color, doesn't matter what color. Load it up and make a line from one side of the page to the other. Do you see how it's dark over here and lighter over here? That's because you're using the paint as you go. Just load more paint onto your brush and go over it again. Now, this brush is very nice. All the bristles are together. In the classroom, our brushes are a little bushy on the top, but as long as they're rounded, it's still a round. That was the first line. The second line, what you're going to do, when you dip the paintbrush into the palette, make sure you turn the paintbrush as you're dipping it. What this does is creates a point to the brush. Do you see how it has a point now? This is important when you're making a thin line. Now I'm barely touching the brush to the paper. When you apply pressure to the brush, that will make the line thicker. So you want hardly any pressure as you make the line. You want this line to be as thin as possible. Don't worry about if the line is wiggly. You're just working on making it as thin as possible. By the way, when you write all your notes, make sure you have enough space in between for these lines, especially for the fan because the fan is wider. Now for the dots, what you're going to do is the same thing that you did for the thin line. As you dip your brush into the paint, turn it. And keep turning it. And again, you'll get now this one's kind of flat, so I have to turn it and make it into a point. Now it's a point. You're going to be making the dots all the way from one side of the paper to the other. I'm barely touching the paper. Now, if you notice that your paintbrush is making a blob instead of a dot, go back and turn it. Or make sure you take your brush and push it on the side of your water glass because you could have too much water on your paintbrush. Okay, I'm not going to show you the whole thing, but you are going to put dots all the way across. So I'm done with my round. The next one I'm going to use is my flat. Flat's this one, straight all the way around. I'm going to wet it. Now you can either use a red or whatever color you use and keep it that color, or change colors. Load the paint onto the brush, flip your brush over so it goes on both sides, and you're going to make a thick line. The line is only as thick as the brush, okay? You're going to hold the brush vertical, that means towards you, and make a line. See how it's dark over here and light over here? That's because the paint ran out. You can go over it again if you want it to be darker, but it doesn't matter at this point. So that's your thick line. When you're edging, you're going to be going along, let's say you want to go over the horizon of your landscape. Use the brush, flip it over as you're dipping it in the paint. Now use the thin side. You're going to turn, in this case it's horizontal. Use the thin side to make the edge. Now if you see your brush doing that, it needs more water. Push it on the side of your water glass like this and load it again. Make sure none of the bristles are sticking out like they were before, and they'll make a nice edge to it. Okay, that's the end of part 1.